How do? Back again after having Sunday off. Nice to spend a bit of time with my family. Obviously, can't get that time back with the kids. So when I've got them here, I do like to maximise my time with them. But anyway, let's get a cracker lacking. So I've got an article here, a nice one from the Financial Times. I'll put the link below. If you please read it yourself as well. Make your own mind up. Obviously, that's important. It's all well and good me reading along here and you having a good old listen. But it's always good for us to make our own mind up. And these websites then get the traffic through their site, so it helps with their advertisement revenue. Just to be very clear, I'm not sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form. I don't profit at all from you doing that. So it's just they produce this content for us. By the way, if you see anything going on up here, that's just I've got a bit of cooking going on. So best turn that down actually while we're on it. Yeah. But yeah, so they can continue putting this content out. Well, anyway, I'll get cracking. So, Financial Times. UK's post-study visa scheme fuels low-wage migration, experts warn. Well, in other news, water is wet and dogs bark. Who would have guessed that one? But anyway, Migration Advisory Committee report could lead to further tightening of rules for international students. I mean, Rishi Sunak has been wanting to, I believe he's bringing in an Indian visa scheme for postgraduates. People with degrees are above, and I think £2,500 in savings, and they will be allowed to basically move to the UK, no questions asked, and every 2 years, as long as they still meet those criteria, they'll be able to stay, and I don't believe there's going to be any caps on that. If that is accurate and correct and true, with a country with 1 billion people in and hundreds of millions of people with degrees, the UK could very quickly become New Delhi instead. And I've asked the question before: is who do these people? Where do their loyalties actually lie? Now, Rishi Sunak, in my opinion, is a citizen of nowhere. Before the general election, where he didn't win, it was revealed that he has a green card for America, and he had a job lined up to work at a bank there. His parents, if I remember correctly, were from Africa, Uganda, I think, possibly. And I think it was his grandparents or great-grandparents who were originally from India. So he's from a transient family. And his wife is obviously Indian. She is a non-domicile of the UK, which means she doesn't have UK citizenship, but she's allowed to live here. So it also means I don't think she pays any tax, even though she's a billionaire. Her family is one of the richest families in the world. They are billionaires, multi-billionaires. Who is Rishi Sunak actually working for, if that is correct? Not the UK, in my opinion. But anyway, on with the story. The UK system of post-study work visas is likely to be fueling low-wage migration rather than drawing global talent into high-skilled jobs, according to the committee tasked with reviewing the scheme. Well, I mean, that's been something that's been going on since... I can remember in the early 2000s, before I went in the army, I had a bit of a dead-end job working in a warehouse for a haulage company, doing furniture. And at that time, truck drivers were getting between £30,000 and £50,000 a year, which even by today's standards isn't bad money, and is actually more than what drivers are getting now. And within a matter of a couple of years, when Tony Blair opened up driving to Eastern Europeans, and I believe Balkans drivers as well, those wages plummeted very, very quickly to basically minimum wage, and that's what truck driving is still roughly on now, or not far off. It's simple supply and demand. And we also saw it with things like bricklayers, plumbers, etc. Building site workers went from being well-paid individuals to being not far off minimum wage. And as this was due to transient workers coming from those countries, and I don't blame these people, by the way, for doing that. They come here, they work for X amount of years, they'll live in squalid conditions, maybe 10 of them in one house, save up a load of money, and then go back home with the money they've saved, where they can build themselves what is basically the equivalent of like a £300,000 to £500,000 house here. So I don't blame those people. What I do blame, though, is the government for destroying our market, because by allowing people from all over the world, where costs of living are completely comparable to here, you are obviously going to destroy the market. And I think they've knowingly done that. As we heard with the anti-Brexit woman in the Question Times, who said, "Who will serve me my Pret? Who will serve me my sandwiches?" That is the mindset of these people. They want a working class of serfs That's what they want. They want a serf class of people, and if that happens to be migrants, so be it to them. In a report published on Tuesday, the Independent Migration Advisory Committee said the introduction of the graduate route, which allows international students and their dependents, I mean, that's crazy. Why would you allow dependents over here as well, especially with students? People coming to university here and allowed to bring wife, kids, sometimes even grandparents. It's just insane. To work in the UK for 2 years after graduation has made the UK a significantly more attractive destination for those who wanted to enter its labour market. And we also have the problem as well with a lot of these countries where they have, I wouldn't even call them degree factories, they just have people printing off degrees and selling them. Like, the universities on paper only. And we don't have any sort of accreditation here that they have to pass in order to prove the qualifications. And even if they have been to a real university, who's to say at the university it comes anywhere close to the standards of what we would class as an equivalent course here. Even before its introduction in 2021, many international master's students worked in low-wage roles for their first year after graduation and earned little more after 5 years, the MAC said. Since then, a surge in international student numbers have been driven by enrolment at less selective, low-cost universities, and the MAC believes there is strong evidence that the graduate visa is boosting the number of students who aim to stay in the UK longer term. I mean, like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these people have got sham master's degrees, which aren't worth the paper that they're printed on by our standards. This is the other lie that we get given as well. We need all these people with degrees coming over here because how else are we going to get these job roles filled? Well, clearly this report's even saying it. We're getting these people coming over and they're not working in these alleged jobs, either because they're not good enough, because they don't know what they're talking about, or past the interview stage, or because they're lying. The most likely outcome is that their performance in the labour market will be weaker than previous cohorts. I mean, they're saying it. This was the same thing in Brexit as well. During the Brexit debate, one of the things about leaving the EU was that mass migration was suppressing wages, especially people who don't have high-skilled qualifications. And they gaslit us the whole way through it, and they had done for years before, saying mass migration does not suppress wages. And then after Brexit, one of the first statements the Bank of England actually made under Mark Carney at the time was that, yes, mass migration does actually stagnate wages and flatten it. So you can't believe these people when they're talking about it. This is all this immigration is all about finances. It's all about businesses wanting cheap labour and people wanting cheap workers for like cheap nannies or cheap mechanics, cheap plumbers. That's what it's all about. It's about this upper middle class group of people who make decisions in our country not wanting to spend the money that they have. And they want to hoard it to themselves and underpay for things that they see as people as below them. Mechanics, plumbers, bricklayers, etc. They look at them as like, oh, you're thickles. I shouldn't have to pay you any money. Why should I have to pay you a decent wage? Go to university like I did. The most likely outcome is that I read that. The committee's analysis will fuel fears among university leaders that they could soon face a further narrowing of visa routes for international students as Rishi Sunak seeks to quell a rebellion by right-wing Tory MPs over record net migration. I mean, even with everything that he's proposing, it doesn't even come close because we'll still only be getting down to what was happening when Tony Blair was in power, which was still hundreds of thousands of people. So they won't have reduced numbers of migration at all. They'll have just reduced it to less obscene amounts of migration, which are still unsustainable. A surge in students coming to the UK has driven the recent rise in international arrivals, with more than 620,000 student visas issued in 2022. I mean, that's just the visas themselves. And now I don't know if that includes the dependents on top of that, or if that's just the students. I mean, either way, that's just crazy. Absolutely. Why? Why are we training? If they're coming over here to come to British university, why are we training the rest of the world? Why are we not training? They talk about us not having enough people here. Why are we not training our own people instead? It's like, I know the people on the left like to go, the old meme of, oh, they took our jobs. But it's like, we have the evidence. They are actually taking the jobs of people that live in this country. And by the way, companies in the UK are allowed to pay people that they import over here 20% less as well. Possibly, no, yeah, it's 20% less. So again, they're undercutting the market, and that is legal. They're allowed to do that, and they're allowed to advertise abroad, and they don't have to advertise in the UK either. It's just, It's maddening. It's actually maddening. Our country is being sold down the river for short-term profit and gain by these greedy globalists. UK universities have become increasingly reliant on higher paying international students to fund teaching and research, with international fees now accounting for nearly 20% of their income. They fear that new curbs on master's students bringing family to the UK will hit their international recruitment. There you go. I mean, if you were actually researching into decent things instead of pumping out the woke diversity, inclusion, equity rubbish that they pump out, let's do studies into how not enough pygmy lesbians with one legs is affecting CEO placements in the UK. No, how about you start working on how can we maximise the usage of graphene into engineering processes to increase electrical conductivity and efficiency of computing programs, isn't it? I mean, that's just something I've made up, but how about put research into that instead? Things that actually have practical uses and have a payoff at the end of it. And you might find that you'll start replacing that money with investment from businesses. We've got some massive businesses in this country, in the UK, and even foreign businesses will invest. If British universities are at the forefront of research, the UK has just approved in the Shetland Islands for vertical rocket launching. So basically, a space program, a British space program. We could see a space industry build up in the UK. They could be putting research into that, and that will then lead to profits and further investment, because there'll be a pipeline from the universities to the space industry. And those companies that are going to be involved in the space industry are going to want the best people for the job, which means they'll put more money into the universities. And it becomes a circle. It'll feed itself. But instead, they're relying on these foreign students doing these half the time rubbish degrees in God knows whatology, which is worth nothing on paper, because they've become addicted to immigration. Same across all the industries in the UK. They've become addicted to immigration. Last week, Home Secretary James Cleverly said he had asked the MAC to review the graduates' visa route as part of a package of measures to cut immigration. The aim was to protect the integrity and quality of the higher education sector, Cleverly told MPs, adding that the policy needs to work in the best interests of the UK, supporting pathway into high-quality jobs for the global talent pool, but reducing opportunities for abuse. I mean, another thing with that is saying protect the integrity and quality. Well, I find it quite suspicious that we have thousands and thousands of Chinese students coming over here who are sponsored by the Chinese Communist Party. And so they are coming to the UK to steal ideas, in my opinion. I don't think that's an unreasonable statement to say. And I wouldn't be surprised if military intelligence were also warning the government about this, and if universities themselves are probably also aware of it. And I'm also wouldn't be surprised if some of these universities, professors, and even the deans of the universities, or the vice-chancellors, I think they're called here, are getting, I wouldn't say backhanders, I don't want to accuse them of anything illegal, but let's say sponsorship, financial sponsorship from the Chinese government. Again, it was, I think, during COVID lockdown, there was a number of US professors at some of the higher universities there who were arrested for spying for the Chinese. And we're doing nothing about that at all. It's the same with allowing the Chinese to fund nuclear power plants in the Hinkley Point nuclear power plant. And also they were on about getting Chinese Huawei to put in all the infrastructure for 5G around the country. It's just madness. It's actual madness. They're actually risking national security to get a little bit of money. It's all about lining the pocket. That's Tories all over. They'll sell the entire country down the road to line their own pockets. And by the way, I don't think Labour are any better either. For those of you who think I'm going to be on the Labour bandwagon, absolutely not. They'll sell us out just to the third world instead, and to a bunch of communists. So, Vivian Stern, Chief Executive of the sectoral body Universities UK, said the graduate route had played a vital role in attracting international students to the UK, with each cohort generating $42 billion a year in economic benefits. Well, how much have they cost us though? That's what the universities are taking in. But what's the immigration cost of that, from their use of the NHS, housing, accommodation, families being given money for, getting whatever other benefits that because they will receive that, and then they'll be the lead on to if they don't leave the country. It's going off topic a bit here, but a big problem that we have in the UK now is Turkish, Kurdish, whatever barber shops and what they call American candy shops as well. These are all fronts, basically, money laundering fronts. But it's not just like the money laundering fronts. These businesses are also given money by the government. They're given grant money by when they come over here. And I believe every time they want to do a new business, they get more grant money and they don't have to pay it back. And any training, so if they then want to become a plumber, they'll get all the plumbing course paid for, and then all the tools bought for them, and then the van paid for. So it's this never-ending stream of money that we're hemorrhaging constantly with this non-stop immigration. And once somebody's in the country, they then act as an anchor point for further people to emigrate here, who then become an anchor point for further people to emigrate here. And it's an exponential increase of numbers, which then exponentially increases the amount of money going out as well. So I don't buy this 42 billion a year economic benefits. I think that's a gross figure, but I do not think it's net. And I think, if anything, the net will be negative if you were actually to fathom it out properly. She added the funds from international students were essential to UK universities facing increasingly acute funding pressures as inflation eroded the value of the annual 9,250 tuition fees paid by UK students. Well, even that I think's gross, to be honest with you. 10 grand a year for what? Unless you're doing something like being an architect or a surgeon or something like that. I really don't see much point. I mean, there's journalism degrees. What do you need to do a degree in journalism for? That's a job you should be learning on the job, an apprenticeship. I remember one, I don't know if it's still going, but there was one university years ago, it was doing a degree on David Beckham. Why would you need to do a degree on David Beckham? That's just crazy. What students and universities now need is stability and certainty. Yeah, well, peel back all the chaff, stop relying on foreign students and start concentrating on what you call projects were based around, which was benefiting the country itself and educating the people of the country. Government must continue to reassure prospective international students that the UK remains open and that the graduate route is here to stay, she said. But the committee's report suggests it questions the scheme's benefits, even though its chair, Brian Bell, said international students in general brought a clear economic benefit to the UK. The cost benefit of enrolling in a UK master's course has changed substantially. As a result, the new visa route, the report said, since a student with an adult partner could jointly earn around £115,000 in a minimum wage job over 3 years in the UK, with course fee starting at £5,000. Bell said he was expecting the MAC to have a wide remit, to think very broadly about the whole route, its purpose, how it's designed, how it compares with other countries offering the international student market, but that it was for ministers to decide what the purpose of the graduate route is. I mean, it should be, and I've no problem with foreign students coming over, it should be for the best of the best. And people where you're trying to woo them to stay here as well. So it's like, oh, well, we've seen like you've been to, I don't know, whatever, is an equivalent school of Eton in America or Germany or France, some top quality school. They've got there on a scholarship even because they're that clever. They've absolutely aced everything, and it's like, oh well, come to the UK. We'll put you through in Oxford, or Durham University or somewhere like that, and we've got some prospective jobs lined up for you, in engineering or in the defence sector or something. Try and get them, try and bring that sort of talent over here. If the aim was to draw international students to the UK and get bums and seats, the policy was a resounding success, he said. But he added that if the aim was to attract really skilled workers for the future, it was unlikely to add much to existing visa routes. Bell said that sensible policy options would include restrictions on the type of courses and university students could attend and the jobs they could undertake, requirements to graduate with certain grades, or the length of time they were able to stay before switching to other visas. Yeah, I mean, it's just a money making scheme, innit? Just a license to print money, and that's the way the universities see it. And be damned to the social consequences downstream in the country. As we're seeing at the moment with all these Palestine protests and things like that. It's, unfortunately, when you start having larger and larger numbers of people from around the world, it wouldn't even be so bad if all these people were all born in the UK after multiple generations. There'd be some sort of semblance of unity, but you're just bringing in a hodgepodge of people from all over the world with totally opposing views, and it's going to end up crashing and burning. And like all Ponzi schemes, the bottom will fall out of it eventually anyway, as they become unsustainable, especially like at the moment where we're seeing a global meltdown and finances are collapsing. It's just going to fall flat on its behind because the industry itself is is reliant on never-ending inflation, basically. Anyway, take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.